Welcome. I am marketing expert and business coach Melissa Kellogg Lueck, and this is the Doing Business Like a Woman podcast, where we are exploring and teaching you how women are reinventing the way business is done and money is made to help you create greater impact and financial freedom, one business at a time. Okay, welcome. Thank you for being here at our show today. I'm so excited to have a really special guest with me today. Sandra Yancey is here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her in a moment. And I'm having a little, I always have a girl crush on my fabulous guests, but Sandra has been a huge mentor for me, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But before we get to all of that, I want to just let you know that this podcast today, this episode, is being brought to you by our 2024 Women's Success Summit with Sandra Yancey. She's going to be our keynote speaker, but we're hosting that right here in Northern Colorado on April 12th, and we'll tell you a lot more about that. We would love to have you join us. We are selling tickets right now, so we'll tell you more about how to get those a little bit later. So let's dive right in to talking to Sandra. And so welcome, Sandra. I'm so glad you're here today, and it's so great to have you.
It's an honor to be with you, Melissa. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So I'm going to introduce Sandra a little bit, and then we're going to have her fill in some of the gaps of the story that I find super interesting. So Sandra is an internationally acclaimed award-winning entrepreneur, founder and CEO of eWomenNetwork, a 5-time #1 best-selling author, a life and business transformation expert for the Emmy award-winning TV show The Doctors, producer of the critically acclaimed movie titled The Glow Project, and a philanthropist. Sandra left her successful Fortune 500 corporate career to launch eWomenNetwork, which has become today one of the most successful multi-million-dollar women's business networks in North America. With over 500,000 women business owners connected through 118 chapters, eWomenNetwork produces nearly 1,500 events annually, like the one we just told you about, as well as the premier international women's entrepreneur conference in North America. She's been recognized by CNN as an American hero. The eWomenNetwork Foundation has awarded cash grants to 115 nonprofits and 183 scholarships to emerging leaders of tomorrow. So welcome, Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know a lot. That's a mouthful. And, I love it. And this is the Sandra that we all admire and look up to, right? But you started somewhere, just like we all start.
Yeah. I'm kind of like almost a quarter of a century, 25-year overnight success, right?
Exactly.
Been doing it for a while. I mean, we're approaching 24 years in business with eWomenNetwork. I had a consulting practice for about almost 8 years prior to that as a solopreneur. I I started out with, I lived in a very small kind of farm town, Midwest farm town. We moved to Dallas. My clients at the time, after I left corporate America, I had built a lot of relationships over the years. And so my clients, it was pretty easy for me to launch my consulting practice in a big way. And my clients were actually the CEO of Coca-Cola, and John Deere and Levi Strauss and NCR and AT&T and the Wall Street Journal, and the list goes on. But when you live in a small town, a Midwest small town, to get to most of these headquarters, I was on a plane. And I had started my family, specifically my daughter. I hadn't had my son yet. And I just wanted a different way of doing business. I felt like as a solopreneur, I was basically wedded to my business. This was before, virtual assistants and all of that kind of business coaches and all of that kind of thing. So it was really out there. It felt in some ways, while I had a bevy of really sexy clients and quite honestly was making a whole lot of money, I wasn't happy, Melissa. I
Mm.
wasn't happy because I felt like I had kind of jumped from the frying pan of corporate America and right into the fire because now, I didn't have the help desk when there were technology issues. And I certainly didn't have an assistant to help, keep me in order and keep me straight and keep me organized and all of that kind of thing. And I was really on my own. When we had the opportunity to move where I am now in Dallas, about 28 years ago, I thought to myself, oh, my life will change because here I am moving into this really big city and it's world headquarters for Frito-Lay and Texas Instruments, and Ross Perot had this huge campus of, I don't know, it looks like there was, five, six, maybe even seven buildings, what I mean? Just all this, opportunity that surrounded the area. And I thought, oh gosh, I can start working in these major corporations and be home at night with
Mm.
and by this time, I had just had my son Ryland. And so I thought I could be home at night with my kids. And so I started networking and in Dallas. And what I found is that so much hospitality here. I mean, people generally speaking are really nice here in Dallas. It's one of the things that I love about it. It has that Midwestern kind of kindness, but all the extra perks of being a major, metropolitan city. And so everybody was really nice to me, but I wasn't really invited to play in the game. I almost felt like I was relegated to being a cheerleader. Like I was on the sides watching,
Yeah.
all of these guys, cutting all these
Mhm.
deals and bringing each other in and sharing, their book of business and that kind of thing. And I was just kind of over here. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I could find a women's group.
Mhm.
Where are the women that, if they're going to be away from their kids, they want to have something pretty fantastic to show for it. They really want to strive to make $1 million. And so I started networking, and I just in 1999, Melissa, I just couldn't find it.
Mhm.
And it was my husband, to be totally honest with you, it was really Kim's idea that said, you ought to just start your own. I mean, that's really how eWomen Network started.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to start this. I didn't have in my mind, I didn't have the ability to think as big as eWomen Network is today. I mean, it was such in my blind spot about the scalability of it,
Mhm.
and but as I started, and you take one step after the other and one step after the other, and you start getting feedback about how great this is and how much they like it, and we should do that. And hey, I've got a friend who is visiting me from Atlanta. Can she come to your meeting? I mean, I was the first managing director running these events. And I was like, sure. And she was like, oh my gosh, we need this in Atlanta. Could you help me, create this in Atlanta? And then she says, and I've got a really good friend that's in San Francisco, Robin, and I think she would be interested in this. And she's going to be visiting me. So if she is visiting me, maybe I could do it while she's here and she could see this. And maybe we could, do you see? And
Yeah.
suddenly I was like, oh my goodness, this has legs. You know, this
Yeah.
is potentially really scalable when I thought it was going to be all online. It was Women Network for electronic, like email,
Mhm.
right? But what I found is that it was originally kind of like the original Facebook for business women. But I learned a really valuable and somewhat painful lesson around timing. It was just the wrong time in
Mhm.
2000. You know what I mean? This whole online connecting. I mean, what year did Facebook come out? I mean, it was years
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
And
You're before your time.
right, everybody was still on dial up. Think about it. Everybody was still on dial up. It was all plain text. So when I was talking about doing profiles with pictures, people were mailing me photographs. I was running up to Kinko's, scanning them. I was then coming back and building their profile page for them. You know what I
Wow.
mean? It was
Yeah.
crazy. And then women were like, no, 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 no. I have a friend and I want to have a meeting and I want to invite them over and let's talk about it and all of that kind of thing. And that's when I started going snap, 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 snap. Okay, these are ideas. How, if I'm watching the customer, which is lesson number one in being successful,
Mm.
you have to sell the way your customer buys, not
Mhm.
necessarily what you think is most convenient for you. I mean, convenience and success often don't live on the same block. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be inconvenienced to be open enough to find out where they're going and then come back and say, okay, do I really want to create something that is going to meet the need for thousands and thousands of people? Right.
Mhm. Mm.
And so that's kind of how it all started in the very beginning.
Okay, so something I noticed in the bio that I have here is that 2 years into her business, she was on the verge of bankruptcy
Hmm.
and ready to close her doors.
Yeah.
Not one to
Beca-
give up. She found her grit. So
yeah.
tell us about that period, because I know a lot,
Yeah.
over these past few years have been through these kind of experiences.
Yeah. What I discovered is that women weren't ready to connect online. It was too new of a concept, and they didn't have the technological know-how. And it was, I mean, even email, believe it or not, for entrepreneur was still kind of on the new side. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so,
Mhm.
really getting people comfortable electronically to make connections wasn't working. And I had been feeding that and feeding it and feeding it and putting good money after bad money and bad money after good money and just like thinking if I just worked harder, if I just worked longer hours, if I just kept rewriting my script, if I just kept making more phone calls, if I kept, and I was chasing something that wasn't working too long. And so finally, once I started opening myself up to the possibilities of what could be, and I couldn't figure it out on my own. And that's when I started really leaning into the questions that people were asking me, what they wanted to do. And I thought, gosh, I need to follow the customer instead of begging the customer to follow me.
Mm,
And that changed everything. But in the meantime, I got my water cut off, and then I didn't realize when the got cut off that that was going to thaw the ice that was in the ice maker of my refrigerator, and it thawed overnight and dripped on the floor. I had wood floors. It warped my floors. I thought, oh my gosh, let me fix this. And I got a hair dryer. I tried to dry the planks, and
mhm.
then that caused the planks to curl on the edge. I made the problem worse. And then I called to see if I could get it fixed, and they were like, "Oh, well, this is like a special stain, and you'll have to do everything, not just this spot. Your kitchen leads into your family room. Let's see, right? I mean, it just goes on and on. I'm like, I can't do that right now. And I went up to a store and found the thickest mat that I could, and ended up putting it in front of my refrigerator. And it was there for, to be honest with you, Melissa, a few years before I ever got to fixing it, replacing it, and being in a position to restain basically what it felt like my whole house. It was
Yeah.
a expensive undertaking. But I just kept, once I figured out follow the
Mhm.
customer will always tell you. And they'll either tell you verbally or they'll tell you by their actions. But
Mhm.
they're always out there informing you of what's
Mhm.
important to them. And it's why I continue to do a tour. It's why I'm coming to Northern Colorado. I have just learned that you have to be next to the customer. I get so much information. I mean, yes, I do a keynote and I work really hard at preparing something that I think will be added value. And if you never see me again, you'll learn things that you can absolutely apply in your business immediately. But I also receive. In all that giving, I receive so much because, as you know, I come for the whole thing. I just don't waltz in when it's time for my time to talk and leave like a lot of speakers do, to be honest with you. I come from the very beginning. I mean, that networking time, that opportunity to tell me, what are you working on and what's going well, and what have you found to be some of your best breakthrough ideas, and what's really a struggle right now. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about your business that could change everything about your business, what could that be? And what's got you worried about, what you're noticing, and just all these questions, right, just feeds me
Yeah.
information. And when I ask them over, like I never get tired of asking the same questions over and over to different people, because now I start to identify themes, right? And that gives me my content of everything that I put out, everything that I teach on my big stages at the conference, everything that I coach on to my private clients, everything that I talk about on a podcast. I mean, it gives me everything. right? I'm never going, what do I do next? Because I'm always in communication with my prospects and potential right fit clients.
I love that. That's so good. And so as we think about networking, and I know that that's obviously something that you are now an expert at, having come from not feeling like an expert at it at the beginning.
Right. For sure.
Um, and I know a lot of the women that come into our meetings maybe don't feel great at networking, or they feel
Hmm.
intimidated when they walk into a room full of 100 women like we're going to have next week, right?
Like me.
And I know. So what kind of advice would you give for us as women to be better networks, to be better at creating business
Mhm.
relationships? Because I think that's one thing that,
Yeah.
having gotten to know you, that I really admire and have learned so much from you about creating business relationships. It's not
Yeah.
just walking in and shoving business cards in people's faces. So talk to us
Right.
about how you think about networking.
Well, if it's one thing that I know for sure with certainty, and that is that all business is about relationships.
Mhm.
And it's part of the reason why I created a relationship business, right? Is really giving women access. I mean, we've seen this happen with mentoring. Mentoring has all been about men, building relationships with that next person coming up, their protege, their succession plan, because in corporate America, it's hard to be promoted if you can't be replaced. And so the really good companies have done a really good job saying, you've got to identify and bring along your replacement so that when we promote you, nothing skips a beat, so to speak. These are conversations that women just haven't had access to because we haven't had a seat at the table, right? And so, but as an internal consultant for a Fortune 500 company and being responsible for one of my responsibilities was the succession planning system, I got to see how it worked. But I always felt, and as a point of clarification, that I was looking through a window, right? I wasn't looking at a mirror. I never really saw people like me at the table, but I got a window seat into how it really works, and I saw how powerful it was. And I was never bitter over, men running the business because I got to say, well, now I know why. Now I know why. They're doing all these things that we as women would do if we just knew, right? I mean, we will find if we notice the patterns of success, we'll adapt to it. We just haven't had access to it. And so relationships have been really important, and networking is a skill. Some people are born great networkers. You know what I mean? But there's a lot more people, I think, like me, who are less comfortable. I mean, I married an extroverted guy. You know what I mean? That carried the conversation, has never met a stranger, wants to sit in the aisle seat, not because it's more leg room, but because he's got more people to talk to. you know? I'm the window seat girl. Like, let me take a nap. I'm exhausted. Like I can be out there with the best of them, but my energy drains over time. It's much more introverted at heart, right? But I can be, powered up, full battery, and go with it. But then I need time to recharge, right? And I get intimidated in big rooms of people. And so I built a business around something that I wasn't good at because I thought if I could find the solution for me, then I knew I could find the solution, teach the solution to all the others that were like me. And the ones that weren't like me, they're the social butterflies that are comfortable meeting everyone. But being a social butterfly, being an extrovert, it also doesn't mean that you're effective, because what you're really asking me is, not just being comfortable in a room, but how do you really build relationships?
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is, most people network to get, but relationship building is about networking to give. It's about building the relationship by supporting someone else. And it feels counterintuitive, particularly when you're hungry in business. Like, you got to make some sales, you got to make the cash register ring.
Mhm.
But I have just learned, and I've built, I mean, from Beyonce's dad to, Matthew Knowles to Ken Cragen, who, became kind of the father that I never had. Mine died before I ever got a chance to know him, and in a car accident. To Dina Dwyer Owens that runs a $7 billion business. I mean, I could go on and on and on with the relationships that I built, and it's always been about, tell me about you. Tell me about you. What's going on with you? What are you excited about most? What are the things that have you on edge? Is there anything that's keeping you up at night? What is the thing that you're most focused on this year, right? What are you trying to accomplish this month or next month or this quarter? And how might I be able to help you? Who do you not know that you need to know? If it's not me, maybe I could make that connection. I mean, that's how I developed a very close relationship with Matthew Knowles. I was actually volunteering and giving my time to a group of business people in Houston. Come to find out, the meeting was a building that he owned. I didn't even know that when I showed up. We were supposed to be done at noon, but we were just talking. He knocked on the door and said, "Hey, are you guys finished?" And I started a conversation. Is this your? Thank you, thank you for donating. And I'm Sandra. And and the next thing you know, I'm telling him about someone I know and ask him if he knows him. And he's like, no, but I'd love to know that person. Can I make that connection? I mean,
Yeah.
like it's really about just giving without the trick is not the trick. The secret is it's not a trick. It's a secret without having any expectations of anything
Hmm.
to come back to you. Like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. No. Quid pro quo. No. It's like you just help people because you can and they know it. They feel it. And before you know it, it just triggers this reciprocity energy. Well, my gosh, how can I help you? What can I do for you?
Yeah.
So I talk about the three X words, so explain to me, what you do, explain to me what you're working on, explain to me who your right fit client is, expand for me. What's now, given that, what is it that you're trying to accomplish and where are you wanting to accelerate?
Hmm.
Who are you needing to know next? What is the problem you need to overcome? Kind of thing, right? And then, give me an example. Give me an example of what the final situation looks like when you've reached the finish line. What does that actually look like? Because I might have some ideas that could be in their blind spot that they haven't even thought about.
Yeah.
And so I've just learned to use those X words over and over again and over again: explain, expand, example. And then over time, I don't have to use those exact words, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
And it just really, I'm telling you, Melissa, it's actually quite magical. And, I think we're all, it's kind of like I've gone to the gym and let me get on the scale and see if anything's changed. And it doesn't work that way. We all know the first day, the first week, sometimes the first 3 weeks or whatever. But if you stick with it over time, it does really start like a snowflake that then grabs more snowflakes. And before you know it, you have a small snowball, and before you know it, right, and it just kind of grows and grows and grows, and it
Mhm.
creates this incredible momentum. And when you're doing that, when you need nothing, I mean, that's what most people don't get. They want to network when they need something. And the
Mhm.
truth is, the magic of having a network is the consistency in which you show up over and over and over again. And people know when you're not desperate for help, that
Yeah.
you're just showing up to be present for them. And I'm telling you, it's what people see when you don't know they're looking.
Yeah, it's so beautiful because as I have really adopted this and really changed my way of thinking, that when we're out meeting people, it's to create relationships and to listen. And for me, and I think for many women, that's so much more intuitive for us because
Yeah,
we are intuitive nurturers and givers. And so if we allow our networking to be that, then we really should be the greatest networkers on the planet,
it
right?
should be. But no question, no question. It's
Yeah.
really not about she who passes out the most cards wins.
Yeah.
It's not about grabbing as many cards as you can and then jamming them into your database and then now, hawking all your wares and services, in an email before you've had a chance to. I've always said I could walk into, and I was at an event not too long ago with 5,000 people, and I was there for 4 days.
Mm.
And my intention over 4 days was to find the 10. the
Mm,
10 out of 5, 40 people accumulatively out of 5,000. And I have built, I'm telling you, a multi-million dollar global business with that kind of thinking. I mean, sometimes your network can actually shrink in size, but expand in value if you've
mhm,
got real relationships.
mhm,
And people shove cards, or I ask I'll ask for cards. And what I've learned is that the people that I really feel like I've made a connection with, I just very secretly kind of take a card. You're going to see this right now, and bend the right hand corner, and I just do it kind of as they give me the card. I just do it very indiscriminately. They don't really notice, and I tuck it in my purse. And at the end of the day, when I look at the hundreds of cards sometimes I could have, I pull the ones that have and these are the ones that I follow up with. And
mm,
I think that slower, intentional relationship, I a lot of times write on the back of something that they want or something that I know. There
mhm.
could be, I might come back when I see what their business need is. It's worth it to me to spend, I mean, come on, 5 minutes in a Google search can give them a link or two that I can attach to an email to say, it was so great meeting you at this conference. And I can't believe of 5,000 people, how powerful our conversation was. I can't stop thinking about you saying that there was one thing that you wanted to fix. And I came across this article, and it's linked below. Can't help but think that this could maybe give you some ideas or further support you in
Yeah.
your quest to conquer this problem. And you'd be surprised, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. And I mean, it's just, people just don't want to take the time. But the truth of the matter is, they're going to spend way more time with a lot less results doing it this old fashioned way that
Mhm.
just doesn't work.
I love that point of focusing on creating quality relationships because I mean, I'm an introvert as well. So to walk into a large room, I am not one of the people to quote unquote, I'm holding up my air quotes, work the room. I don't want to
Yeah.
know everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me to talk myself into that in the early days of networking, I'd be like, all right, I just need to talk to one person and have a great conversation.
Right.
That was my goal. And so I love that you're validating that it really is about those few deep conversations rather than trying to meet everybody in the room and have no depth.
Yeah. Reminds me of Zig Ziglar. He said he was a neighbor of mine before he passed away. We actually had the same trainer, and we uh, we both worked out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And he worked out very early in the morning at 6 o'clock. I worked out at 7 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then like 9 o'clock on Saturdays. So I never saw him on Saturdays. But he was always on cool down when I showed up on the bike, and I got on the bike, and I would be doing my warm up, right? And so I had about 10 minutes to talk to him for well over a year, every Tuesday and Thursday. I look back on those days and just kind of pinch myself. But he was the one that, said to me, interestingly enough, that people will never care about you until you have shown them how much you care about them.
Mhm.
And I have helped people that I knew were not a profile of anyone that would become a client of mine in any form or fashion, and helped them because I could. My mother used to say, giving is never giving until you can help someone who truly can never pay you back. And yet I'm always surprised how that person will know someone
Mhm.
and say, you know, I know somebody I really feel like I should introduce you to,
Yeah.
and then that person becomes, a really huge figure in my life for a whole host of various different reasons,
Yeah.
you know.
I love that. But you go into those interactions not expecting some
Right,
magical
right,
introduction, but just
right.
giving. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I met someone who's got a corporate job. He and I would talk off and on, and then I love to cook, and and he said, he was talking about baklava. I'll never forget it. And his wife made incredible baklava, and I said I'd love to have a really good homemade recipe for baklava because I like to make when I bake, I like to make it from scratch. And he said, I'm gonna connect you with my wife. So now I'm connected with his wife. We're having this conversation over baklava. She and I become kind of fast friends. And she said, I have a girlfriend that you need to know. And before you knew it, that girlfriend became really big in my life. In fact, she introduced me to a mastermind group that I ultimately joined, which changed everything for me.
Hmm.
I mean, you just like never know. And I
Yeah.
think it's just, withholding judgment sometimes and just trusting that the universe, there's something about just understand that the universe is conspiring to
Yes.
give you what you want if you will allow it. And we just do so much. Mel Robbins does a great job just talking about how we just turn things away.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how particularly women get all into their hesitation. And
Hmm.
after 5 seconds of that, yes, this is right for me, we start rationalizing all the reasons why we can't.
Hmm.
It's really changed me when I see an opportunity. And I notice even I will very quickly pick up my phone and say, well, let me see if I'm available. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if there's something on my calendar, I'm like, "Oh, I can't do that." And what I've learned is, let me check and see if I've got brain surgery scheduled that day. And I'll go, "Oh, I have something, but it's not brain surgery. That's movable because
Yeah.
this is the universe bringing exactly what I need."
That's
And
awesome.
it's testing me on whether I really want it or not because
Yep.
I can use this as an excuse.
Hmm.
And when you lose your excuses, you really do start to find your results.
I love that. So one of the things so just for the audience, I am part of eWomenNetwork as a managing director. I serve on Sandra's team as the managing director for Northern Colorado. Yes, I love it. And one of the things when I took over this position last year, almost a year ago in June, one of the things that I didn't expect is how much I was going to learn about building a community and the
Mhm.
importance of building a community. So there's a difference between a networking group and a community. And what
Mhm.
we have at eWomen Network is definitely a community. And I think this is an important skill, not just for those of us that are building networks or memberships, but it's important for each one of us as women building a business. Because if we're building a business, we're building a community, right? We're building a community of people that are working with us now, people that have worked with us in the past, people that will work with us in the future. So I would love for you to share with my audience, like what you see as like how to build a great community, because you have definitely done that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you bring this up because that's probably the number one thing I'm being asked to speak about outside of the eWomen Network environment. Like, oh, literally, how have you done? I mean, I have clients, I have members that have been members. We're 23 years old who have been members for 21 years.
Hmm.
Paying monthly members 21 years. I mean, it's like unheard of. And everybody that's trying to build a membership based community is asking me about it. And the truth of the matter is, there is a layering. There is a very distinct difference between followers.
Hmm.
There's a difference between an audience, right, of people that are just engaging with you. There is a difference between a group when they really opt in, and then there is that highest level, which is of gathering, which is community. And that is when it's bigger, a community actually exists when the people are there for more reasons than the original intent. It has this much greater level of connection.
Hmm.
And I find that people throw around community, the word community, without really fully understanding exactly what it is. How do you create community? Well, first of all, it starts out with getting crystal clear, like everything else, on what is the real intention. Because you have to, I think it's Stephen Covey, you have to begin with the end in mind. I mean, it will happen faster for you. And I think speed, particularly in today's day, and technological age with AI, speed is more important than ever before, right? It's really easy to get left in the dust today. And even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just kind of meander. I mean, you're just going to get bowled over. So, speed, I think, is really important. So, beginning with the end in mind, what is it that you're trying to create? And then, being all in. So, it really is about letting them know that you are listening to them. See, people want to be served, no question about it, and they will pay for that. but they also want to know that you are listening to them, that you are pausing, that it's not all about you, it's about them, that you pause for a minute and allow them to engage with you, and that you ask them questions. What could I be doing differently? What could I be doing better? And that they'll usually give you more suggestions than you have bandwidth to take on. It's not about everything. It's about, if I could only do one or two of those things, which are the most important, and then delivering on it.
Mhm.
And being, I always say, persistency is what gets you the top, and then consistency is what keeps you there. There's I my CFO gave me a report that said only 5% of all small businesses ever make it to 20 years, right? And then it drops off, it cuts it half, 25. So when I think about the fact that we've made it 23 years, or we'll be 24 years this year, and all the ups and downs, from the internet bust to the market crash to COVID to, I mean, there's always something coming if you stay in business long enough. I do believe, and I've tracked it in my own business, every 5 to 6 years, there's going to be something major,
Yeah.
that happens, the economy, the whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And your job is to lean into it, not lean back. And many people like, oh, let me lean back and see if I can ride this out. Those are the people that never find the momentum again. But I think community is really about being in it for the long haul, and always sticking and always saying, sometimes people will tell you their problems without asking you to fix it, if that makes sense. Like, even the managing director community, we'll hear. We don't always have to even ask, what do you want us to fix? We'll hear what their frustration is about. And then we have a meeting every week to say, what can we do to solve this for them? What is it, something we could do that could give them back, minutes that accumulate into hours and hours over time? And then we take it on, and sometimes don't say anything right away, because we don't always know, particularly if it's a technological fix, how complicated that is.
Mhm.
My technology team, when I asked them what I could do better for them, the comment they made to me is saying, Sandra, could you please stop saying, can't you just? Because it's never can't you just in technology. It's always so much more
Right.
complicated, I've learned. But we'll go and we'll work on things for months that our managing directors may not know about. And then when we get on a call, I'll say, we've got a new announcement for you. We've just fixed this for you, and to see them go, okay, they're kind of like, that came out of left field. And it wasn't like somebody asked for it. We just noticed what they were like. This is really frustrating. Well, if you start to
Mhm.
hear a pattern of frustration, that's an opportunity to lean into it and fix it for them. And I think communities are built by people sensing that you're really listening to
Mm.
them,
Mhm.
and leaning in, and it not being all about you just dumping stuff on them. They want some of that too, particularly if it moves their business forward, right? Or
Yeah.
makes their cash register ring. But it's also about the the process, the journey. Just saw I saved it, actually. I just saw someone talk about it. It was Brad Pitt. He was accepting an award, and he said, I asked someone one time, is it the journey or is it the destination? And the response he got was, it's the people.
Mm. Mhm.
And I was like, oosh, right? I mean,
Yeah.
mm, that's really that really is what it's all about. None of us have enough time in 1,440 minutes in a day, or the bandwidth to figure out everything by ourselves.
Yeah.
We just don't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that culture of listening starts at the top, right? And then that trickles throughout the community. We become a culture of a community of listeners.
Right.
I love that.
That's
So
what makes people feel like they belong. So belonging, I think, is the key word.
mhm.
When you hear people say, I belong here,
Mm,
when they say, I found my people, or I found my tribe,
yeah.
it's what it's really saying is, I feel a sense of belonging here.
Yeah.
right? So how do you help people feel like you belong here?
Yeah.
Because we value you, we see you, we listen to you,
Mm-hmm.
we celebrate you, we cry with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? We hug you, right? We give you the Kleenex, we'll bring you the casserole, we'll also give you a kick in the tush to get going, like, you know?
Right. Yeah, I love that. That's so
Mhm.
good.
Mm.
So as we wrap up, we have our Success Summit
Can't
coming
wait,
to Northern Colorado next
can't
week,
wait,
April 12th,
honestly.
Friday, 11 to 3 at
And
Ptarmigan.
what a rock star can I just say you are,
Oh,
Melissa,
thank you.
honestly. I
Thank you.
mean, I have seen you, even though we haven't always talked about it each time. I have watched your commitment to building community in Northern Colorado. And I have seen how deliberate you have been about, getting the right people in the room. I mean, nothing's worse than walking into a room of the wrong people. We all know energetically what that is. But
Yeah.
to see you and your leadership team put so much intention around creating a environment and experience and a community of women supporting women in a way that also is anchored by this power energy of being excited about building our respective businesses and empires, that
Mhm.
we are empire making in action,
Mhm.
that things can actually be bigger than what we thought. And that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And really excited about what you've created. And I'm really looking forward to coming to Northern Colorado next week.
Yeah. It's a beautiful community, and I just love every single one of the ladies in the room. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing, amazing journey for me. I'm very humbled by it. And I thank you
Okay.
for the confidence in me
Of
to,
course, of course. That was easy.
bring
That
me
was the
into
easy
this
part.
role.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would love to hear from you, just a couple words, a little teaser for our audience
Mhm.
of what you're going to be
Yeah.
talking about next Friday. Because I'm really excited. I've been telling people,
Hmm.
and so yes,
So if it's a tease, I can't say too much, but I need to say enough. That's what I'm
yes.
hearing. So let me just say that, with all that we read, in the news or watch on the news or wherever you're getting all the noise information around what's going on around us, what I want you to know is that in 2023, eWomen Network had by far, by leaps and bounds, not by a little bit, our best year ever. It moved us into a different $1 million category. And what we did back when we were doing our planning for 2024 back in October, November, is we really stepped back to say a little bit of like the taillights. What were the things that we did that created these kind of results so that as we plan for headlights moving forward, what what are some of the things we want to replicate and build on? And so what I'm coming to Northern Colorado with is literally 5 of those things that we
Mm,
did in 2023 that created, astronomical results. And I picked the things that I feel like if people never see me again, they will say, it was value added, and I got things I could walk out the door and immediately begin to implement, right?
mhm.
So, 5 things that could change everything that are applicable to any business, no matter if you are in startup mode or you're in seasoned mode, if you are struggling right now, or even if you're having success, how do you really build on that momentum? I'm just going to totally, pull back the curtain and say, here are the 5 things that literally could change your year. We are 1 quarter in, we have 3 quarters to go.
Yeah.
And that's still plenty of time to have your best year ever.
I love that. I love that because, yeah, we're just starting the second quarter, the rest of the year. And I know that you've been to quite a few other cities around the country already. And what we're hearing about the talk that you're giving, the teaching, is that it's the best ever. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited. I've been to a few summits myself, and I'm
Mm.
so excited. I know this one's going to blow it out of the water. And so we're really excited to have you here on the podcast and in Northern Colorado.
Can't wait.
And So we invite all of our listeners to join us here in Northern Colorado for the Women's Success Summit on April 12th at Ptarmigan Country Club. We will
It's
have,
Friday. We're going to end the week together.
I
Like,
know,
talk
it's the
about
perfect end of the
Friday. You know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate your time today. I know our listeners are going to really appreciate it as well. And so
Thank
thank
you.
you very
Thank
much.
you for your leadership. Thank you for your vision. And thank you for partnering with me in this incredible journey that we're embarking together. It's a great time to be a business owner, and it is an extraordinary time for women. And I'm looking forward to kind of moving that agenda forward. Thanks, Melissa.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, if you like this podcast, I would love for you to become a part of my community. Sign up for my Friday Selly. The link is in the show notes. And each Friday, I'm going to deliver to your inbox my weekly celebration, as well as my thoughts on the latest in business and marketing. And I want to keep you in the know about my upcoming events, free trainings, free gifts, book clubs, all the fun things. And of course, I'm going to send you notification of my latest podcast episodes. So get signed up and I'll see you there.